Recording in progress.
All right, thank you.
Mr. IT guy.
Jack of all trades. All right, so I will call the meeting to order at 7:39, and if we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everybody. I apologize for the delayed start to the meeting. We had some technical difficulties. First Selectman came to our rescue, so thank him for that. So I'm chairman of the Revision Commission. I was asked to remind everybody to please state your name before you speak, so that when the minutes are transcribed, they're able to identify the speakers. I'd like to start out tonight by introducing a new member who we have via Zoom. Elizabeth Kaplan was recently appointed by the Board of Selectmen to fill the open position on the Charter Revision Commission. This is Elizabeth's first meeting as a member, and she's there joining us live. So I don't know trying to get up to speed on the activities of the commission so far. So I certainly appreciate that, and look forward to having you at future meetings. Say hello in person. I know, Elizabeth, you don't have to say anything, but if you want to say anything, you're welcome.
Thank you for having me. Sorry I'm not there in person tonight. My family is away this week, but I look forward to meeting in person next time and in future meetings. If anybody has any questions with me, feel free to reach out. But I've been reviewing past minute meetings, recording that's come out, so hopefully I'll get up to speed quickly.
We're happy that you will.
Thank you.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the July 11th meeting. I believe those were several fits and starts since then. But, that was the last meeting for which we were together.
I'll make a motion we accept the
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So, Elizabeth, I couldn't tell if you
Probably abstain. I wasn't there for that meeting, so I
Yep, that's
can't
perfectly
say
understandable.
whether the minutes are accurate, but I believe you all.
Okay, so it's 4 ayes and an abstention. And I should
Yeah.
point out that Jeremy Lambert, who's our other member, is participating via Zoom as well, as is Kathy Harrington, our ex officio member from the Board of Selectmen. All right, the next item on the agenda is public comment. And I should point out that we originally had a public hearing scheduled prior to this meeting that was canceled. That meeting was scheduled, we thought that this would be our meeting prior to the Board of Selectmen on August 1st. Given the time delay we've had, we don't believe that we're in a position to present. We will provide a report to the Board of Selectmen on August 1st, but we're not in a position to provide any proposals. So that's why we canceled the public hearing that was scheduled earlier this evening. So with that said, is there any public comment? Any public comment on Zoom? Okay. So we'll move on to the next item. So, I think as you're all aware, we were asked at looking at 3 positions in town government that are currently elected that we've been asked to look at whether they should be appointed or not. And so we've talked to the town treasurer, we've talked to the tax collector tonight. Kathy Duna, the town clerk, is here. That's the intent of this interview. We're going to talk to the first selectman later about that. I did ask him to wait until we were done with Kathy before we meeting. Obviously, before the meeting, anybody can be here. But I think my thought was that we would get more candid responses from people if Colin wasn't here when Kathy was presenting, and Kathy wasn't here when Colin was presenting. So that's the thought process there. And I should do that. So once Kathy's done, we'll So Kathy, I think the way that we've handled this in the past is the other office holders have given us some background about them personally, how they came into the role, and to explain the role, how you see the role, what you do, and how you do it. And I think we'll probably have some questions from there, but I think that's probably as good a jumping off point as I can provide.
Sure. Thank you. Well, thank you for letting me come.
Oh, is your microphone on?
Okay, here we go. There we go. Thank you for having me. Had to laugh just to see what third time's a charm, so we're finally here. But for anybody who doesn't know me, I've been well invested in the community. I have been kicking around Suffield for approximately 40 years. I'm the third generation on our family preserve farmland out in West Suffield. Our roots do run deep in this town. I attended the Suffield school systems. I actually did 17 years here on the police department. I was one of the first female patrol officers and handled records. I volunteered for the Suffield ambulance. I married into the fire department and still am an honorary member today. I volunteered on the Suffield ambulance, and I'm also on the Suffield Agri-Science board of directors and co-market manager with Ellie at the Suffield Farmers Market. I am currently 2 years into my 4-year term. I've been there for four rounds. Basically, my department is very budget conscious. I think that's one of the great advantages of living in town is to know where your expenses are. I do weekly cash deposits to the bank. All of the checks are brought upstairs to the treasurer, to finance. Both have it stuck hard. The big thing that I think that we need to understand is that we actually work for the people of the. I've got some handouts for you. And I will scan these and get them over to you guys as well. I've got a lot of information. I know you asked of Jill. I have a few extras here if you guys want to pass them down.
You don't have electronic copies.
I will have to scan it, get it over to them. Unfortunately, I didn't see that as consideration. I oversee 2 employees in my department. Both employees, per statute, must serve as the town clerk. So in my absence, my full-time assistant town clerk, Michelle, works 35 hours a week, and my part-time Eric Bauscher works 15 hours. Both girls are fully certified and have undergone 3+ years in testing to be state certified. Both employees do reside in the town of Suffield. They've been active within their communities. I continue to train. I go to a conference twice a year to keep up with the never-changing laws. It's really hard because there's so many laws. A gentleman of that well, be a police officer, and that's about what it is as far as a town clerk. Numerous laws and duties that we have to abide by. So the first thing I wanted to do was right out of the taken on additional duties such as the recent landfill permits. We do dog office. It's a very busy office. I have minutes and agendas, but we go the extra step to post them online and to email them out, which most companies don't do that. So we're very involved. We keep the database as far as new additions, elections, new appointments, terms, that kind of tracking type of thing. So the first little section you see is our duties as street driver, the community. The next one is just a recent thing with all of these election laws, some of the time constraints that we have to meet. If we do mess up any of those, we could actually election. And the other thing that I think is really important, and Kathy, you're going to probably appreciate this, and Connecticut counselors, all of the counselors in the state of Connecticut, if you're elected, it's a pretty good overall view. I know when you talked to Jill last time, you had questioned her on that as well. So I went online. It's a little bit older, but it'll give me a great idea as to what's happening out there as compared to something. The other thing I gave you, I know you had asked Jill, was some of the income and the money that we handle down there. I mean, obviously with the real estate market kind of not being up to par and the mortgage rates being sky high, our land reportings are definitely a little on the lower side, but that'll give you a quick overall of what goes through our office. We manage the part of the town clerk that's really pretty intricate is that we have a lot of power to manage some of the monies that we actually do take in. We have what we call a dollar fund, where a little bit of the land recordings that come in are earmarked for different pockets, and the different pockets we have to use for historical preservation. We can use for all of the shelving in the vault. I bought out of dollar fund money, so that was a real cost savings to the town. But it was tough to actually get that separated out. That was put into the general fund, which took me about 3 or 4 years to pull out and actually make it a separate fund that had to be spent statutorily in a different account. So, like I said, being a town resident, I think that living in town has a pretty good relationship with all of our emergency services, especially with the town hall. And any questions that you have?
So, Kathy, Hurricane, this is one of the most people don't understand all that your office does.
It is, it's very
I
confusing.
appreciate that. So, I do have a question, just kind of thumbing through it, just kind of stuck with me for a moment. On elections, 20% of your office time is spent just on elections? That seems to be a great deal.
It's very labor intensive. Right now, the absentee ballots for the last presidential election, we did about 3,500 absentee ballots. At 6 a.m., I leave at 6 p.m. From the time you come in and give me an application, by law, I have to have that application back out in the mail or to you within 24 hours. It takes us about 15 minutes each to process an absentee ballot. So you give me the application, I have to go on the state website, I have to look you up, I have to plug in the ballot, the number, the day, the date, the time I gave it to you, if I handed it to you in hand, if I mailed it, then I or Michelle every night has to go to the post office and actually hand the post people the ballots. We can't put them in any boxes, we have to actually go there. On the return trip, you do your absentee ballot, you bring it back to the office, there's our drop box outside of the office, or you bring it to me. There too again, I have to stamp it, we have to, new stamps this year, we have to say how it came back, by mail, by box, by da-da-da. We have to go back into that state site, we have to find your name, we have to log that ballot back in again as being received, the date, and the time that it came back. Then we check it off on the list, and then we have to alphabetize them by street to then process them to give them to the registrars. So it is incredibly labor intensive.
Hi, Kathy, Ray Dalrymple. Hey, just a quick question out of curiosity, and I won't spend a lot of time because you only spend, you said, like 5%. Just give me a little bit of background on maps, like just land maps,
Yes.
new property maps, all that good stuff.
Yes.
Just like,
We have maps that actually go back to when North Main Street was first established. I mean, it's in this Gantro's book up on the shelf. But, so if you have a property and you have it surveyed, then you bring the map into us and we actually put it into a book and a page. So we have full-size maps that you have to file in the vault, and then the newer ones we hang, but every single map is sent out. We have it microfilmed. And the newer maps from 95 on, they're on the computer, so you can come in, find a book and a page, bring up that map. But all of your land developments, all of your, like the Quail Run projects, like Stony Brook, all of the developments, all of those maps, the whole project, all of that paperwork is there. So you can actually go in and look at them. It's pretty cool. We actually have some original even land documents that date back to the 1700s, which I love when the kids come in. We'll have them go into the vault and I say, you're actually touching something from the 1700s, which is really pretty neat. I mean, we've really, part of the dollar fund money that we spent, we have everything, we have digitized so much stuff. So maps from 95 current are available online. So you can actually sign into our land record system. You can bring up land records from your house. You can put your name in and bring up your land records, see your deed, see your mortgage, see your maps if there is a map. And, you know, some of the more controversial parts, like when, you know, the sand pit issue was going on. I mean, we had people in the vault all the time. And that's when we started to really start to scan everything to get it online, so that we've cut down the traffic coming into town hall, but we make money every month on people that are online, your title searchers, scanning and everything and printing right out of their house. It's interesting, it really is. We have all of the minutes and agendas after a couple of years, we are destroying them by state statute. But it's pretty cool. We have town reports from day one in the vault. We have maps from day one in the vault. We have your minutes and agendas, your minutes. Someone was in the other day, and from the early 30s, we have all of your Board of Education minutes there. All of the Police Commission minutes from the 20s when they were first established. And you actually open up the books. We've had them scanned, so a lot of them are online, kind of a work in progress. But there's a lot of information, a lot of really cool stuff, as well as the maps in that vault.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Kathy, I'm sorry, Mike Haynes again.
Sure, Mike.
One thing, oh, thanks. So, one thing, you said this is, what, your 4th or 5th term,
Mhm.
right? So that equates out to 16, 18 years, give or take.
12, 14.
So, so here's the question, taking you back 16, 18 years ago, or
Mhm.
however long it's been, how long do you think it took before you felt like you understood the job well enough, 90%, 95%, whatever, that you really felt comfortable that you understood and knew everything? Because you said it was it's a big job, right, obviously. And there's a lot of regulation to it and everything else. So I'm just curious, how long do you think that learning curve was?
It takes a good 3 to 4 years. So the town clerk goes through like a wagon wheel. Every spring and fall, they have a certification class that you go to. And as in the, oh, I guess I didn't photocopy that off, you have land records, you have vitals, you have elections, you have other duties. So they go through in each of that wagon wheel, spring and fall, you go and learn about the different tasks that you have. We have the presidential election coming up, and then we have the next one, which will be the municipal one. You have to keep track of all of the different commissions and stuff. So every year there's something different. So land records and stuff you always do, but then there's things that you do a little of, not every year, but every, like, say, 2 or 3 years. So it does take you a real good time to really get a grasp on what you're doing.
You have to go through the cycle.
You have to go through the cycle, and if you miss one of the spokes on that wagon wheel, you have to wait until it comes back around in 3 years. So,
Okay.
you know, rather than the 4 years to certify, it may take you 7 or 8, so that's an extension as well. I think one of the, you know, the important things is, you know, we have seen, especially recently, and this is one of the things I want to suggest to you as the commission. It's really hard because, like a police officer, you get certified, you're marketable. So I don't know how we can lock in that position. So I'm one of the older dinosaurs that is locked in with a pension, but there is no more pension. So I wouldn't be as transient to go to Enfield or Windsor Locks or something like that. I'm settled in town, I'm locked into this town. I mean, it's my town and I take pride in it. But sometimes what we're seeing happening outside is you have someone who is certified, very marketable, ready to go, and then say a neighboring town says, hey, I'll give you $10,000, $20,000 more. That person is gone. So then you have that void that you have to replace where, you know, there's pros and cons to, you know, to going outside versus election, but that's big, and we've just seen it in East Granby. I mean, they had a tax collector who was just ready to start tax season, and she was, you know, moved by another town. And now you have to scramble as, you know, the guys doing the police department, they're sure to help in one thing or another. So I just want to throw that out for consideration.
So, the certification, it's a state certification, and like how long does it sounds like 10 years to get certification. So, like what happens if somebody's elected and they don't have the certification? Is there a time period that they have to be certified?
There isn't, and that's the tough thing. The sexual any good so my girls are all ready, so if I should go, something happens, these girls are ready to take over. But I think the hard part with having someone get elected with no experience is that you have to rely on your staff. So I've seen that happen in the area of towns, and we try to help each other out as much as we can, but we've had people who they've got to get in there, and then it's like, oh my gosh. And there's so much confidentiality to that comes with our job, because we handle all your birth, your death, your marriage, and your DD-214s, which your DD-214s, your military. Those are definitely locked in a secure cabinet in the wall. Nobody sees those, absolutely. In, files his paper, he might get a small tax abatement off of his taxes. The only one that is allowed to actually peek at that would be the assessor. Other than that would just be like the military area or something like that. So that's very confidential. Birth certificates are 100 years confidential. Unless you're the grandmother, grandfather would prove, or mother or dad would prove, nobody gets a copy of that. Representative, that's been after 9/11. Big issue, so we have to be very, very careful. There's social security numbers on marriage licenses, if anybody is out of public record. We have to be careful. So there's a lot of that type of thing that can really get the town in a very legal quandary if you did hand out the wrong type of document.
Thank you. Ray Dalrymple again. So I've asked the other two interviewees this very same question. and you're kind of the veteran here, exercising. So how do you feel about, what are your kind of pros and cons and your thoughts about being elected versus being appointed?
There is pros and cons to this. Like I said, if you set your office up to flow in succession, I think that that is a good thing. I have seen both sides of the coin with, towns really struggling when someone came in that wasn't trained. I've seen people that come in that are very trained and then leave to get another job. So I think that being deeply rooted in your town and taking pride in your town has a lot to do with it. I think if you go outside of town, you wouldn't get the dedication. We know our town, we know our townspeople, we know our geography. Maybe an outside clerk wouldn't know what 490 farmland and how to classify it. There's a lot of pros and cons to it, and I just really, will it happen? Probably down the road. I don't think it should happen now. I think we're at the point where, you're looking at the whole global government. You're looking at, it's not a secret that the townspeople have been asking for a town manager for a number of years. So I think you need to look at the whole picture and unilaterally do a lot of investigating. The sheet that I gave you, some towns have just gone to a hired town clerk, I believe. I don't know, Bristol Summers. I started to do the legwork on that, and then this landfill permit hit us real heavy between that and the dogs. So we do about 1,800 dog registrations on our, we're a little off. So between that and the landfill, it's been a real busy month. I wish I had done more legwork to actually find out what their pros and cons were. And for every pro, I think there is a con. So I personally am not actually for it right at this point. I think it needs a lot more investigative. I think there's a lot more to uncover. I think if it does move forward, it needs to be the whole big picture as well. I really feel that the town clerk, as you can see on the handout that I gave you, carries an awful lot of power. If you are a hired clerk, as some of my comrades in other neighboring departments, it's really hard to go in and say, Colin, I don't agree with you, I really think that we need to do this, or how I spent the money for the vault. I had the money, I knew it needed to be done, I made the decision, the money is there for the town, I'm the custodian of it, so, we work in the best practices of the town. So I think that's really hard. I think, having that, I've seen some, selectman comes and goes every couple of years possibly. I've lived through great selectmen, and then I've lived through selectmen who had different versions, I mean, Bridge Street School, or paving a road, or building a school, or doing, everybody has their niche. And sometimes when money gets tight, I mean, I've worked very hard with our Board of Finance, which are wonderful people. We're very fortunate to have it, but it took me a while to educate them on what this dollar fund was. They see this nice little pile of money. It's like, ooh, general fund, let's go, And it's like, no, you can't use it for the general fund. We have to use it this way. So, right now, I think, I really am not in favor of it at this point. Of moving forward to make it an employee, to leave it as it is.
So, just to follow up, and what I've gleaned from the other interviews is, being elected, you have, I guess, a higher level of autonomy in your position, and I guess autonomy is power in this case.
And we have worked very, very hard to remain neutral. We don't do politics in our office. That is definitely not done. We are privy to an awful lot of information, a lot of lawsuits, a lot of stuff going on in this town. We're still people on the street, and we still treat them very generically because that's the way that we got repeatedly. I mean, yes, you know, I might be of one party, but our job is to help everybody and to abide by the state, you know? We've had new people on RTC, DTC, whatever. We've had to that this goes smooth and that everybody's going to get it done, and we are not going to get any papers. We've really tried to, you know, to be accommodating to everybody and to be cordial to everybody. So I don't think that political thing really doesn't even come into play.
So I don't want to end questioning with the panel, but Jeremy, I know you're online. Do you have any questions for Kathy?
No, thank you for the opportunity. No, at this point, I think all the questions that we've asked the other folks to come in and interview for have been asked. I don't think I have anything specific. Thank you.
Elizabeth, any questions?
I don't have anything for this time either. Thank you.
Kathy?
Thanks, Eric. I was just wondering, Kathy, if you already touched on this, I apologize, but can you tell me, like, how often are you in the office? Do you have, like, a set schedule, is it 30 hours?
I am more than 40 hours. We, you know, when I came into this office, it was a position, but you were not there, and we've made it to be there. So I'm usually in the office by 7:30, quarter of 8, 8 o'clock every morning. Sometimes I do not even take lunch when it gets really busy. You know, like I said, I'm out of there at 4:30. We've made this a full-time job. I mean, I'm there, I'm right in with the shallows with the girls. Right now we have one on vacation. We had one on vacation last week, so I assume their duties, so I'm doing the reporting. We are all cross-trained so that everybody can do everybody's job, but it is, for me, a 40-plus hour a week because I can't sit there and read some of the documents I need to read because the configuration doesn't give you the peace and quiet to actually sit and absorb what you're trying to read. So I do a lot of work at home, I prepare my budget at home, but it was after hours. I'm in the office, and everybody that comes in, they want to talk to you, or ask them a question, or find a map, or find this, and we're there to help them. So town meetings, that's the other thing. I mean, we're available for the town meetings, that's above and beyond. You know, I definitely, they work 35, I'm well beyond that, and I do consider that a full-time job, and I'm locked in.
Thank you.
So just one more
Well
follow-up.
said, Eric.
Okay, thanks, Ken.
One more follow-up, Ray Dalrymple. So I've heard comments from the other two interviewees to get your kind of final take on this. Your accountability and responsibility is first to the townspeople. And administrations come and go. And I think what I've heard you say, that your primary obligation is to make sure that the customer, the townspeople of Suffield, are served well and served with accuracy and responsibility and responsiveness. And I heard that from the other two interviewees as well. And like I said, the administrations can come and go, but your heart is with the townspeople, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. It's nice, and yes, I think we have a real loyalty to the town and to keep it afloat. We do tend to be the go-to when people call, we're the ones that answer the phone 9 times out of 10, and usually you get, this may not be the right place to be calling, but, you know, I have a tree in my backyard, I have a raccoon in my yard, oh, mercy, we've been on my. But at least we can, if we don't know the answer, we can try to direct them where they need to go, and you know, and we are the historians basically as well. So whatever we do, you know, we're saving this for the future. It's pretty cool to look back on, you know, some of the old minutes and agendas and things like that, and be able to, you know, to say, no, this isn't right. If people come in and file things, this isn't right. we need to fix that.
Kathy, it's Mike Haynes, just to put a rounder point on Rick. I have to tell you that you're still America, right? You know, when you're not available to talk with or in person or on the phone, so you step right up and know exactly what's going on. They're a huge help, so
Thank you. We have a really strong team.
just want to make that
Thank
comment.
you. I will pass that
Pass that
along.
along, yeah.
They're good people, really good people.
All right, well, thank you very much, Kathy. We appreciate it. Nice job. If we have any follow-up questions.
Yes, you're more than welcome. That's our motto. I mean, we're here if you have any questions. Office-wise, procedural, we'll be more than happy to answer it. And I will send the information handed out to you guys online as well.
Yes, this is the one.
Yeah, there's a lot of good information there, so, and there's more, but I didn't know it was.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Give a good intro?
Yeah, you're a good guy. I didn't beat you up too bad.
All right.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
All right, so I'll just point out for the minutes that First Selectman has joined us at 8:16. So Colin, thanks for coming. Obviously, we were charged with looking at several charter changes, I think at your request. So we've been doing that, and when we first started, you gave us a little bit of background on your thought process on why you thought the changes should be considered. But I think we thought it would be appropriate to hear from you in more detail, what your thought process is, and why we're here. So that's why we thought it would be beneficial to hear from you tonight.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me. Again, thank you for your time, your commitment and efforts on this. I know it's been difficult at times, but we're getting there. It's been a pleasure working for the town for the past 2.5 years and kind of looking at everything on a day-to-day basis. Get turnover, and I look at these positions that are elected, and I'll stick with the same points. It's succession planning and accountability. When we're going to, I think the first thing to address is that we're very fortunate to have the people we have, the elected officials, Kathy, Jill, Casey. They do an excellent job, and at no point, are we in this process, is there any plan to, replace them? It's more the role and what the future is for that role. I think in the past 2.5 years, especially when I got in, there were at least 5 department head positions that retired. We've had 3 to 4 department head positions that have turned over, and we don't usually have somebody to apologize. We don't have somebody to step into that role. And when we look at the roles we have now, with especially town clerk and tax collector, I think we have an opportunity where we have 2 elected officials that at some point in the next 2 to 5 years will step down. We can now take the time to kind of look to see if there's somebody underneath that we can start prepping for that position. I think you've heard from both of them how long it takes to get certified for the position. I would point out, do we hire a town attorney and wait for them to get past their bar exam? Do we hire a finance director and say, hey, we'll give you 5-10 years, learn about financial stuff, and then we'll be good to go, but in the meantime, you can work for us. We don't try to look for the most qualified people. I think it's a benefit to the town that we do hire the most qualified people, but you don't get that per se when you vote on an elected official. So for that role, I think, succession planning is really important. The accountability part, I think everyone knows it's tough for elected officials. You always hear, if they don't show up, what are you going to do? And the question is, what are you going to do? We're very fortunate that all 3 employees or officials we have now are dedicated and committed to the job. But that doesn't guarantee that the next person up is going to be. If tomorrow Kathy says, I'll see you in a year, Colin, okay, Kathy, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, but that it's an extreme, it's an exaggeration, but the possibility is there. But if there's a medical illness, and we don't have them for an extended period of time, what do we do then? At least with a higher position, we can put them on short-term or long-term disability, clear a spot in the budgeted payroll, and then hire somebody on. That we're not able to do now. We still have to pay these officials. So yeah, accountability, I think just attendance, production, work ethic. Again, all 3 of them are great cases. The most recent one, she's really kind of knocked it out of the park. She's there all the time. But again, have we had town treasurers in the past that are as committed as them? Probably not. What happens if somebody loses money? Then what? There's no accountability there per se. They don't have to step down. They don't have to quit. They can keep working, and the town will still have to pay them. There's no repercussions for those actions. So I think that's a big part of the accountability part and what I'm looking at. And I've heard some comment where they said, there's only 2 or 3 reasons. These are 2 or 3 very good reasons. You don't need a laundry list of reasons why you want to change this. And so I stick to those 2. And I say, we're looking at the position, not the people in the position. And if we were to vote to change this, doesn't mean it happens overnight. I think there would be a plan for the next election cycle to change it out. And if we're looking for the most qualified, we probably have some of the most qualified people already. So it would make sense to keep them in that role. So I'm happy to entertain any other questions you guys have, but those are the 2 main points that I want to talk about.
So Ray Down, how are you?
I'm good.
So obviously, if you elect somebody, they have to be a town resident. And if they're appointed, they can be from anywhere. Right, anytime. So your concern, one of your concerns would be that by being appointed or a salary position would be open up to a much broader pool, and especially on more short of notice if somebody were to terminate or just change positions or resign or whatever. So I would imagine that would be one of your big concerns. Is that pool of applicants would be much broader if they were a appointed position.
That's correct. You can pull that person from anywhere. Where it's elected, you have 15,000 people in town. How many are children? So take them out, and how many of those remainder 9,000 of the people have regular jobs? And then how many of those people are actually certified for the positions? Probably 0. I take that back 1 because I believe the town of Windsor has their town clerk living here. So there's not a broad pool, but yes, that's something to consider.
Thank you.
Mike, any questions?
I don't have that.
Jeremy, any questions?
Sorry, that was quiet. Was somebody asking if I had any questions?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Just thinking a moment. So as we laid out some of the what if scenarios and things like that, is this just generally kind of sort of as you think about the future and the planning of the town to kind of cover these scenarios, or was there any other sort of like inspiration or guiding sort of principle in terms of what you've seen successful in other towns that sort of maybe you drew some inspiration from? If you could, if that was the case, and could you speak to that?
It was more the experiences we've gone through in the past 2.5 years with hiring and finding qualified candidates, and it hasn't been easy. I think we've been fortunate to have the department heads we have, but I've said it before in budget meetings, we just continue to compete with other towns for the same people. And I don't think these two positions would be any different, but at least we know that they have the experience and the qualifications. So that's where the inspiration has been drawn from, through the experience that we've gone through the past 2.5 years.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any more questions.
Okay. Kathy or Elizabeth, do either of you have any questions?
I was just wondering if you guys are elected to appointed would change any of the finances related to those roles. Would that potentially mean salary changes or employee benefit changes that the town would need to consider in addition to role change?
We would have to look at the salaries of comparable towns, but I think we've been always looked at that and tried to keep all our salaries in line, or at least keep up with what everyone else is doing. In terms of benefits, we're already paying the benefits, so I would have to look at maybe like a short-term, long-term by adding a member there. If that goes up, I can't say. It's probably not a very high cost if we do.
So you're not imagining anything material under those lines, the way you're thinking of it now?
Currently, no, but maybe Eric can
Okay.
speak on that since you are finance director. There's additional cost to that.
I don't know why this keeps going out.
This one I can share with you.
Thank you.
If you break that one, then there's
Yeah.
a problem.
Well, no, I don't think there would be, at least from a benefit perspective, I mean, they get the benefits that everybody else does. I mean, I could kind of see, and I understand your point that if you have a wider pool, it would seem to me that it would likely be more competitive, that, now because you've got people from town, they're invested in the town, and I think there's probably a bit of a hometown discount that they're not going to go anywhere because they live in town. They want to work for the town. I think what we're experiencing with some of the other department heads, where you're competing with other towns for those people, there'd probably be I would think there'd be some salary inflation naturally by going out to the market for those positions. I mean, that shouldn't be the sole determinant, but I think, from a finance perspective, it would seem to me it would likely make that cost more.
And Elizabeth, we get a CCM report almost regularly every 6 months. We did get that. What it is, it takes the comments part of CCM and puts all their salaries together so you can make comparables. And that's something that we can get you guys to take a look at that and see where we're at with everybody else.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful
you.
for these three positions for us to see that.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, that's not to say from a governance perspective that, budget should be your sole determinant, but it's certainly a factor. Anybody have any other questions? Okay.
Hey, Eric,
Oh.
if Beth is done, I do have a question. This is
Okay.
Kathy Harrington.
Sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
Do you have anything else, Beth?
Not at the moment. Go ahead.
Okay, I didn't want to cut you off, thank you. So this is Kathy Harrington calling. I was just wondering if you could speak to whether or not there are any performance appraisals or evaluations done of these positions?
Yeah, we do yearly performance reviews. So those, except for the treasurer, the other two positions are under review.
Do you and the HR do them?
Yes. Yep.
Why not treasurer?
I don't think they had been done previously, and we didn't really tie them into it. I mean, it's not a full-time position, so we don't actually do any of the part-time positions for our review.
Sorry, this is Kathy Aaron, just want to make sure I understand. So for the tax collector and the town clerk, you do or you don't do performance appraisals for them?
We do.
You do,
Yeah.
okay.
This is Elizabeth Kaplan. As a follow-up to Kathy's question, do all three of those positions report directly to you, Colin? Or is there another spot somewhere in the way? Is there a hierarchy? I'm wondering if everybody reports directly to you and therefore you and HR do the performance reviews, or there's another way around it?
Cool.
And so, another follow-up question there, this is Kathy Harrington. So has there ever been any issues with, doing the performance appraisals if there was one or more things that you wish anybody in the position was doing that they weren't doing? Or that you had any discussions with them about doing differently and kind of how those maybe worked out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I'm at liberty to go into the specifics of those reviews, but there's
Okay.
always goals that we would like them to hit. There's, always areas of improvement that we look for. And,
Okay.
there's sometimes disagreements, and we try to work together to get to the goal that, that's best for the town and the department. So, yeah, there can be disagreements sometimes, but overall, I would say our employees do a good job.
So you work collaboratively with them to kind of, they have the opportunity to speak up to you if they disagree with something that might be asked of them, or just to share exactly how they feel about what they're doing or being asked to do, right?
Yeah, we're very open in these reviews, and we want to be able to, if somebody disagrees with the direction we want to go, it's not, we're just going to force it. We want to hear why, and then, we'll kind of come up with a resolution at that point.
I mean, it's an
So I have,
interesting situation because, they're elected like you are, so, at the end of the day, you don't have a lot of authority over these employees. Ultimately,
Right.
you've got control over the budget. That's really the only lever you have other than, working cooperatively and collaboratively with them, right?
Correct, which comes to the point of accountability, making sure that the work is being done and that our goals are being met. And from an elected official's view, they don't per se have to do that. They don't really have to show up to the reviews if they didn't want to. They wouldn't have to meet any goals if they didn't want to. And like I said, we're very fortunate to have the employees we do. But that may not last forever.
Yeah, but there are blurred lines across town government. You've got, like the police chief and the fire chief, that they work for you, but they've also got accountability to separate commissions and things like that. So it's not necessarily totally unusual.
No, but there is, at the end of the day, this position of the first selectman does hold the ultimate authority over almost every position.
Right.
So while we try to collaborate with these commissions, if we need something done, it's understood that it gets done if the first selectman's office, wants that done. So you try to work collaboratively, and I think we've done a very good job of that in the past 2.5 years.
Anybody have anything else? No. All right.
All right.
Thank you, Colin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate your time again.
Thanks, Colin.
Thank you. Thanks.
Stay here.
Yeah, you're
Thanks, Colin.
welcome to stay. So.
Thank you.
All right, so next item on the agenda is discussion of future meetings. So, we've had a number of fits and starts with for a variety of reasons, which I think most of you are familiar with some issues with posting of agendas, having a vacancy on the commission that did not make us meet the statutory requirement of minimum membership. So originally we were asked to report to the Board of Selectmen by August 21st, which we still, I think, plan to report to the Board of Selectmen by August 21st. But that was in anticipation of, the original deadline was in anticipation of us being complete with our work, because there's a deadline of September 5th for the work to be completed through the whole process in order to make the ballot in November. And I think with the delays that we've had and discussions with Colin and Kathy, I just don't think it's realistic that we're going to hit that deadline. So, I think I'd like the concurrence of the commission, but I think our thought process is that it makes sense for us to update the Board of Selectmen on August 21st as to what we've accomplished, and to ask that we be allowed to continue our work, but that we're not in a position to present any solid proposals to the Board of Selectmen on that date. So I'll open it up to discussion to see if people are in agreement with that, or if they have any comments.
Yeah, Ray Dalrymple, just if it's not August 21st, I think it's fair that we try to put a time frame on when we would present a final report to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, I think that's fair.
And Eric, it's Mike Haynes. So I guess my question is a little different. Who else do we have to listen to before we can start, formulating or having a discussion about the totality of what we've heard and what we know?
Well, I guess I would open that up to the members. Are there other?
Do we have anyone else scheduled to come in? And
Nobody at this point.
No one, okay.
But we don't have any meetings scheduled either.
We don't have any meetings scheduled?
No, because we anticipated that we'd be presenting to the Board of Selectmen on August 21st.
Yeah, I guess.
Eric, this is Kathy Harrington. To Mike's point, I do recall we wanted to ask Melissa, perhaps, to come in, and perhaps Ed McEnany as previous first selectman.
Yes.
And then I know that Eric, you had mentioned that a chair of one of the commissions had reached out to you and asked that the CRC look at the charter provisions that related to them. I'm not certain which commission that is, and I'm not certain if you wanted to share it so that perhaps the commission might want to decide whether or not they want to look into that as well.
So, I mean, we haven't scheduled anybody else, but there are other first selectmen that we've suggested that we do talk to. And, the other commission is the Permanent Building Commission, that they suggested that perhaps we look at the charge of the Permanent Building Commission in the charter, just to review it, to clarify responsibilities and things like that. So, that's something that, was not part of our original charge, but I believe that we do have the authority to look at anything in the charter if we choose. The Board of Selectmen doesn't have to take any recommendations that we make regarding anything, including things that were not in our original charge. But given that they've reached out with some concerns about what's in the charter currently about their roles and responsibilities, I thought it would probably make sense to at least have a conversation with them about that.
And if I may, this is Kathy Harrington again. To Ray's point, The town attorney, Derek Donnelly, had mentioned that at most the CRC can have 16 months to do their work. And since the Board of Selectmen created the CRC on April 17th, I believe that would start the running of the 16 months. So if the Board of Selectmen does amend their charge to provide additional time, I think, they would give us they would give the CRC another report back date with that 16 months in mind.
Well, I mean, I for one would certainly hope that we're not at this a year from now. So, I mean, I can't imagine that we need more than a couple months at the most.
I agree with that.
I don't know. I mean, you've been through this before as well, Mike. But.
Yeah, frankly, I'm wondering why. I mean, I can understand a few more weeks, maybe a month, but hopefully not any longer than that.
Sure.
If we have kind of the identified individuals that we think should come and give us their thoughts, I think if we can get them in over the next couple of weeks, then I think we'll be in better position to understand how much longer it might be.
Okay. That's fair.
And I guess going along with that, do we want to schedule additional meetings in the month of August to start working on that process?
You're saying prior to meeting with the Board of Selectmen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got certainly next Thursday, if we want to keep it to just Thursdays, we certainly have next Thursday at a minimum. Just a thought.
I think that's fair.
8:15.
Yeah, I mean, I would also point out that, we have had public comment at our meetings, and we've had at least one or two public hearings. So I think, we should also look at comments we've received just to make sure that there's nothing else that
We need to consider.
That we need to consider. So,
And another public, we have to do another public comment?
before we finalize.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm fine with another meeting next Thursday. Jeremy, Elizabeth, does next Thursday work for you?
Yeah, next Thursday works for me, and yeah, I concur. I don't think we'll be ready to make a formalized recommendation on the 21st. So I generally agree with that. I also agree with what was stated in terms of we should have a deadline of some kind, even if it's self-imposed, so it doesn't linger, to just kind of keep us moving forward. So I think I'm generally in alignment with what's been stated so far.
Okay. All right, well, I can sketch out a schedule for the next few weeks and see what that looks like and what it, I think we should go to the Board of Selectmen with an ask to say, we need 2 months or a month or whatever it is, so. Okay. So I'll sketch that out and we can discuss that next week, if that works.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so, so that will be a special meeting next Thursday. So, but we'll confirm the place and we'll get that posted. Okay. So the other thing we've talked about some research. So I did some research which I'll share, and I think I have copies for those in the audience, and we can get this posted on the website. But this is a list of tax collectors in the state, and I'll distribute this after the meeting for those online. But we had a question come up at one meeting, what towns appoint these positions, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. So this is just a list of all the tax collectors across the state, whether they're elected or appointed. So just something for us to consider. And this is also a list of town clerks, whether they're elected or appointed. Thank you. then I couldn't find a similar list for treasurer, but just doing some research for comparable towns, I came up with a list of treasurer positions. Thank you.
Hey, apologies, Eric. Your last comment kind of trickled off there. Can you repeat that?
Oh, sorry, I was walking around handing out documents. So
Yeah, no worries.
I've handed out 3 lists. One is a list of all the tax collectors in the state and whether they're elected or appointed. And then I also handed out a list of town clerks and whether they're elected or appointed and the length of term for each of those. And then a list that I put together myself of treasurers for comparable towns. So I did neighboring towns and comparable towns to our size. These are towns that we mostly get compared to they have similar size school districts, so they're in the same DIRG that we are. So I'll let people look at this and we can talk about it at the next meeting. I think the thing that stood out to me is that, when you look at tax collector and the tax collector position, we're not an outlier. That we still have elected town clerks and tax collectors. But the treasurer position kind of surprised me a little that we are a bit of an outlier there. That when you look at this list, Windsor Locks, I believe, still has an elected treasurer, who I think is also, it's also the town clerk. They just happen to be elected to the same position. Every other town that I looked at has an appointed treasurer. So that was, that was a bit of a surprise to me. So I'm not saying it. I'm not offering an opinion. But it's just the information I was able to research. So.
Did I hear you correctly that for Windsor Locks, you believe that tax collector, the treasurer, and the town clerk are one and the
I
same?
believe so.
Wow.
I'm sorry, this is Kathy Harrington. Mike, could you repeat that? I wasn't able to hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, I was asking Eric if I heard him correctly that in Windsor Locks, the treasurer and the town clerk are one and the same individual, which I find to be a little disturbing if the town clerk is actually handling money, and it just didn't seem quite right to me, but Eric confirmed.
Yeah, but I would.
That's what he said.
Yeah, no, I share that concern, but I would say that's Windsor Locks' cross to bear.
Oh,
Yeah.
no question.
That's true.
Yeah. So I'll get that distributed to those of you on the phone or on Zoom. So I'll get that out to you. So I think we've discussed that. Is there any other research that people would like? And we talked about getting some CCM data on salaries for these positions. So we'll get that. Is there anything else anybody would like to see? No? Okay.
No, I just would second getting that CCM data. That I think, again, as stated, is not the sole input, but it would be an important input to consider.
Sure. Okay. Sounds good. All right. And I think we've discussed the presentation to the Board of Selectmen, which we'll discuss in more detail next week at our meeting. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there any public comment in the room? Give you a microphone.
Oh, there's one.
Oh, okay.
There's two over there.
That won't turn on. Hi, Neil Hornish, Doral Avenue. I just want to say, yeah, I think it's really prudent for you to ask for more time. As you mentioned, once you get your draft report, you'll have to have.
Kathy, I'm not able to hear the public comment.
Oh, sorry.
Agreed, Elizabeth,
Apologize.
here online.
I got it, sorry. Again,
Okay, thank
Neil
you.
Hornish, Thorell Avenue. I was just saying, I think it's very prudent to ask for more time. As was mentioned, after you get your draft report, you'll have to have a public hearing and then maybe have another meeting after that, depending on what comes from the public hearing. And then once it goes to the Board of Selectmen, they're gonna have to have a public hearing, so I don't see any way to get this in time to get on the ballot, so. But I also want to thank you for bringing copies for the people in the audience, and it's very considerate, and it's nice to have that while you're talking about it, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You want me to hand it to you, Tom? Oh.
Thank you, sir. Tom Pernay, Warrentown Road. Just one comment, you're looking at 3 elected positions, and they're really, that work at, for the town, but there really only are 3 others. One is the first selectman, and then there's 2 registrars of voters. So just, if you wanted to be complete and look at all of the positions that are currently elected, that could be employees, those would be the others to consider. Not sure you want to do that. I would encourage you to look at the first selectman long-term, but that's a big change to where you've been. And I think at some point the town is going to feel like it would be important to have a town administrator or town manager, because typically in Connecticut, a town that's between 15 and 20,000 usually switches at that point because the job gets so complicated and complex in terms of the background needed. So just to be complete on that, and additionally the comments that Colin made about accountability also apply to him, because I mean, and that's I think one reason why selectmen only have a 2-year term, because they're more accountable because of that, because they have to get reelected every 2 years if they want to continue in the job. So that's another thing to think about. So that's all. Just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else?
I'll make a question.
Thank you. Annie Thorell Avenue. I mentioned this at an earlier meeting, but I did serve on Granby's Charter Revision Commission. We took many, many months to do it. And when we did it, we went through the entire charter, the whole entire charter. It wasn't a task. And I would encourage you to consider doing that and just take your time. If this isn't going to make it on the ballot, start at the beginning and go through it, because there's a lot of changes that probably should be made to modernize the charter, especially with Zoom meetings. That's not included in our charter now. And I know we may not need to put it in there, but we should be reflecting how times are changing to accommodate e-meetings. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. I don't know that there's anybody from the public on Zoom, but any public comment from Zoom? Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
That treasurer.
Recording stopped.